All right, so Trey Sermon, we kind of talk about how the draft works, and a lot of people do not like picking running backs early. I love this pick, and a lot of people felt that Trey Sermon should have been picked earlier than he did. Obviously played at Oklahoma for 3 years, then he goes to Ohio State, and Ohio State didn't use him in the passing game as much. But what I've heard is that he is a phenomenal pass catching back. I definitely watched more of the Ohio State stuff, but apparently, if you look at his Oklahoma film, you see him, excel in the passing game. And just when you watch him, the thing that stands out the most is the balance, and it is elite. It is top notch running back balance, and that just popped off the screen to me. I don't think that we've seen a running back in San Francisco with this type of ability to stay on his feet in in a long time. I think you kind of look back when the 49ers had Frank Gore, and one of the things that made Frank Gore so great was if it was 3rd and 3, he could get hit a yard, a yard and have 2 yards left, and he would find a way to stay up on his feet and fall forward and get that first down. I think Trey Sermon is going to be a guy like that. But what were your just overall thoughts on the pick?
I really liked it. I'm not a huge fan of going running back super early, especially in the Shanahan offense, but I think Kyle sees something in Sermon. For me, the most impressive thing is that short yardage is the quick burst. He's not like a sprinter in that he runs a 4.3, but his first 10 yards, he's a lot faster than people expect him to be. Similar to Mostert, obviously in a different way. Like Mostert looks like he's not running that fast when he's blowing by people, but Sermon is so quick, and I think he brought up everything that he does well in his interview after. He was like, I can catch passes, I can run the ball, I can protect the quarterback. And he's a bigger dude, 6 foot 215. I think you have on here, and I really like the pick. I think he's another guy for Shanahan to mold, and I think in 2022 pick him in fantasy.
So okay, that was going to be my next question for you is what should we expect from him? And I'll start out with 2021 because you just brought up 2022. I think that he could very well become the lead back this season. I would not be surprised whatsoever. I think that right now, just how the running back room kind of looks, is you have him and Raheem Mostert fighting to be the main ball carrier. And I think if Trey Sermon wins that battle, Mostert could potentially get moved. I wouldn't expect that to happen. I would still expect them to utilize Mostert unless Elijah Mitchell like completely balled out and kind of took over that Raheem Mostert role. But I think these two guys, I think Trey Sermon and Raheem are the two guys fighting for that one, running back one spot in Kyle's offense. I think the loser of that kind of training camp battle is probably going to be the second guy in touches. And then I think Jeff Wilson and Elijah Mitchell are kind of vying for that 3 spot, and they'll probably both make the roster. And then I think that Hasty's probably on the practice squad, and Wayne Gallman's more of a camp body than anything, in my opinion. Which isn't to knock him. I mean, it's a pretty good camp body, in my opinion. So I like it. I like that as your 5th or 6th guy in your running back room. But I think with Trey Sermon, one of the big issues with him, and I think a lot of people didn't like this, is he doesn't have home run speed. Not a guy with big straight line speed, but he makes up for it because his 10 yard split in his 40 is phenomenal. Like his burst is top notch. His ability to make guys miss, top notch, and he's great in the passing game. I think that maybe Sermon is not exactly the same guy, but we could see him used in maybe a role that Kyle Shanahan wanted to use Jerick McKinnon in before he was injured, and kind of had to battle a lot of injuries. I think the difference with Jet McKinnon is that he had a lot more straight line speed before his injury. And maybe Trey Sermon doesn't have that, but he still has the burst. He has the size, because that was something that was kind of forgotten about McKinnon, is that he was pretty thick, and Sermon's very thick. I definitely think Sermon's a better player, and that should be projected to be a better player in the NFL than Jet McKinnon ever was. So I love it. I'm excited to see how they utilize him in the passing game, because he's probably I'm very confident he is the best passing back on this roster as is right now. And if he's able to adjust to the pass blocking of the NFL early on, and if that's kind of a positive thing, I didn't see many reps of him doing that. But if he's able to adjust to that, you could see him as the main third down back from the start. And maybe a couple of these other backs are taking more of the runs on the early downs. but I think Sermon's going to immediately step in. So what do you expect from him early on?
So I look at this running back room in a completely different way than you do. I think Kyle wants a speed guy and he wants a between the tackles guy. I think Sermon and Jeff Wilson are vying to be that between the tackles guy, and Mostert and Elijah Mitchell are going to be the speed guy. I think Mostert's going to win the speed battle, and I think Sermon has a good chance of winning the between the tackles battle. But I think Sermon is Aaron Jones. I think that's how he's going to be used. Obviously, can be used out of the backfield, but they have a guy like Jamal Williams there who to take the load off and to do some different things. I think, like, think about how Tevin Coleman was used. Even when Mostert was running for 220 every game, Tevin Coleman was starting the game half the time, and he was the between the tackles guy. I think that's more what Shanahan is shooting for, and I think Sermon is his new Tevin Coleman, hopefully a souped up version. I kind of look at it as two different positions on the field rather than RB1, because I think they're going to do completely different things, and I think Kyle's going to have plays that he would call for Sermon that he would not call for Mostert, and same for the other way around.
No, I think that's an excellent analysis when you kind of talk about what they're going to do. I think I was more speaking of just like overall touches than in terms of role, because I do think that you're gonna in Kyle's system you're always gonna have three backs, and you can have a 1 and a 2, but the guy that supplements them is the big question. So I guess like what I'm kind of thinking is it's not like Raheem, like those guys are competing necessarily for the role, because I think Raheem is going to get that, he's going to be the main speed back, and I think Sermon's going to be, the main power slash pass catching back. Similar to what you're talking about, Tevin Coleman. I think he will be much more productive, but I think they're more fighting for, all right, how are we winning? Are we winning more with that powerful attack? Or are we winning more with this outside zone scheme? And those two guys are there. And then the other two guys are there to spell those two, but they're kind of battling of, all right, who's going to get more touches? So I definitely think you're spot on though with the roles that those guys are going to play. But anything else you wanted to add about this Trey Sermon pick? Because I'm hyped about it. I'm really excited.
I'm super excited. Just want to throw out. I just really quickly looked up 2019 Niners rushing attempts. Tevin Coleman and Raheem Mostert had the same number of attempts, and Breida had 14 less. Coleman and Mostert had 137. Breida had 123. I think Elijah Mitchell gets, I don't know, maybe 30 carries, similar to Hasty last year. And if we had to throw out carries, I think Mostert probably gets 30 or 40 more than Sermon. But I think this basically ends the Jeff Wilson dream a little bit, because I think Sermon's going to come in and take a lot of his reps.
Yeah, it would be hard for Jeff Wilson to beat out Trey Sermon in camp. That'd be difficult for him.
Yeah.
I still think that there's a good chance that we see a good amount of Jeff Wilson though. But Trey Sermon is definitely going to be. I think you're right about the carries, but I have to add, I think Sermon's going to catch a lot more passes than Raheem will.
Yeah.
Which he could, like, Trey Sermon might have less carries, but he could end up potentially having more touches,
he could have 40 catches. Yeah.
Exactly. So yeah, so I think that'll be really cool. I think this is probably one of the most exciting spots. When we start talking about like training camp battles, the running back room. I mean, that's going to be cool to see, because the thing about Kyle is that they're going to give it to the dudes that ball out the most. Like, they're going to get the ball the most. Also, they could easily hold 4 guys on the roster. If Elijah Mitchell shows up and he's not a very good player, he's probably not going to make the roster. They have other guys there. So everyone's going to have to perform well if they're going to make this team. And I love to see the competition there. But I think that'll probably do it for Trey Sermon. We'll definitely be talking about him a lot more this offseason, but that's, I think, just our initial thoughts on him.